that every soldier is forced to make the night before the attack.
On their fronts, on their backs, in their boots, they were covered in lead. A helmet, a mask to protect against beta rays, and a special apron. Double layers of protection on the hands. The whole uniform weighed 26 to 30 kilos.
Хорошо, значит, первый вопрос решили. Так, медицинское свидетельство не все прошли? Все прошли. Нет, подождите, это ответ, значит, не по существу. Анализ крови, правильно? Значит, я вам для себя, товарищи, говорю, мы проводили 2 дня назад эксперимент с научным центром. Офицеры ходили туда вместе со мной. Понятно? Значит, страшного, конечно, ничего там нет. Это ясно. Сегодня состоялось решение и правительственное. Они тоже идут туда же?
Obviously, some people didn't want to go, but they had to. They were reservists. They had to go. For me, there was no question. I had to go do my duty. Who was going to do it for me? Who was going to clean up this disaster and stop the spread of radioactivity all over the world? Somebody had to do it.
2.5 weeks of hell. But hell only lasted 2 to 3 minutes for each soldier, or sometimes even just 40 seconds when the level was too high. We were careful to calculate out the time to save as many lives as possible.
When the siren blows, a crew of 8 soldiers rushes up onto the roof, along with an officer. Their mission is simple: shovel up the radioactive debris as quickly as possible and throw it off the roof. According to General Tarakanov's calculations, the level of radioactivity, estimated to be 7,000 rongens per hour, only allows the bio-robots 45 seconds on the roof, only enough time for a couple of shovelfuls.
We were like ants. Just as some were finishing their task, others would immediately take their place. Everyone did their job, no matter how small it was. And that's how, together, we were able to fight the radioactivity.
For 10 days, a new crew of bio-robots climbs on the roof every 10 minutes. According to military personnel, 3,500 people participate in the cleanup. Some, like Igor Kostin and Konstantin Fedotov, went up on the roof 5 times.
We picked up pieces that were 1,500 rongens. After a day of work, our hands would ache, and we could not make a fist.
The first time I went up on the roof, I was struck by the mystical feeling there. It was like being on another planet. The whole thing was covered in radioactive waste. My hands were shaking. I didn't know what world I was in, and I started snapping photos. If you look close, you can see traces of radiation on the film. I was holding the camera like this, and it was coming up from the ground, like that.
Your eyes hurt, and there was a metal taste in your mouth. Those are the two things you felt. And once you felt that, you knew you had gotten more than your dose.
You couldn't feel your teeth up there. Your mouth was full of this lead taste. You went like this, but you couldn't hear anything. Everything was covered in lead. Even today, 20 years later, I can still taste the lead in my mouth.
Thousands of them will discover that this peculiar taste means an invisible enemy is attacking. As the biorobots are sacrificing their lives on the roof of the plant, the cleanup continues throughout the 30-kilometer zone, 24 hours a day, rain or shine.
Where normally it would take one man 1 hour to do a job, here in Chernobyl it took 60 people.
When we came down off the roof, it felt like our blood had been sucked dry by vampires. We were drained. We could not move. Some people would have nosebleeds. The firemen were right there. If someone's nose started bleeding, they got sent to the hospital. If we collapsed, we got sent home. But we wanted to hold out. But at that time we were young and strong. Our health is shot. We've lost everything. They wrote in my record that we got 20.5 rongens. But what did that mean? That number was several times lower than the actual dose.
Позвольте мне от оперативной группы Министерства обороны СССР вручить вам почетный грамоту.
As a reward, each soldier receives a liquidator certificate from the army and a 100-ruble bonus, the equivalent today of about $100 US. They have risked their lives, but they've only reduced the radiation level on the roof by 35%.
When they sent all those people up onto the roof, no one knew exactly the actual level of radiation. Now we know it was between 10,000 and 12,000 rongens per hour. At that level of radioactivity, people never should have been sent.
7 months after the explosion, the zone has been cleaned up and the sarcophagus completed. 500,000 people, military and civilians, have participated in the operation.
I told the commission that for having confronted such levels of radioactivity, having cleaned up all that graphite and having accomplished such heroic tasks, our soldiers needed something symbolic, like putting up our flag.
Putting the flag up was like putting the flag on the Reichstag. When the Red Army conquered fascism, for them, the flag was a symbol of their triumph over radioactivity.
Each team of liquidators celebrates the end of the operation in their own way. Bocharov and his men etch their names onto the final metal piece to go up on top of the sarcophagus.
Our sarcophagus is a pantheon, a tomb, a mausoleum, our second mausoleum. After that, we stopped building nuclear power plants.
A bitter victory. The country will never recover.
It cost us 18 billion rubles. At that time, a ruble was worth $1. 18 billion. That's huge. And if you consider that shortly after the price of oil collapsed, you can imagine the trouble our country and perestroika were up against.
The first snow has started to stick on Chernobyl. For the authorities, this proves the sarcophagus is airtight, at least for 30 years, or so they predict. The liquidators have gone home. Reactors 1, 2, and 3 are back up and running. The first Battle of Chernobyl has ended in a victory that heralded the end of the USSR. But for many, it also marks the beginning of a war that 20 years later still hasn't ended. 20 years later, Pripyat is still a ghost town. Accompanied by Igor Kostin, Yulia wanted to see the apartment where she lived with her family up until the fateful day of their evacuation. Contrary to what they'd been told, not a single inhabitant was ever able to come back to live in the deserted buildings.
Потрогай стену, раз ты пришла к себе домой.
For Igor Kostin as well, the visit stirs up painful memories. He was fatally exposed to radiation during the 7 months he spent covering the battle. Since then, he's had to be hospitalized for over 2 months each year.
Новую энергию в завтрашний день. Родина, как никто, больше дает энергию человеку. Это твоя родина, твоя земля сейчас впитала всю мощность, что только мы можем быть отсюда.
У меня такое ощущение, что я забыла всю жизнь.
For the hundreds of thousands of atomic refugees, as for the hundreds of thousands of veterans from the Battle of Chernobyl, the fight against their invisible enemy hasn't let up. Everyone who went to Chernobyl is still suffering from the radioactivity their bodies absorbed. In the months following the accident, the liquidators flooded into hospitals all over the Soviet Union. 20 years later, those who are still alive continue to frequent Hospital Number 6. They're all victims of what specialists have since named the Chernobyl syndrome.
We've all got a bunch of symptoms: heart, stomach, liver, kidneys, nervous system. Our whole bodies were radically upset by the metabolic changes caused by radiation and chemical exposure.
When the liquidators went back home, they were exhausted, incapable of going back to normal life. 20 years later, many of those who survived are disabled and unable to work. And the authorities appear to be ignoring their plight by cutting down their welfare money. that every soldier is forced to make the night before the attack.
Так, сделайте. Бумаг у кого у нас?
Сюда, на затылок, плавочки.
On their fronts, on their backs, in their boots.
Маску, потом
They were covered in lead.
еще одевают из
A helmet.
значит, такой щиток для того, чтобы...
И многие так.
Obviously, some people didn't want to go, but they had to. They were reservists. They had to go.
Мое мнение было, надо было ехать и отдать свой долг.
For me, there was no question. I had to go do my duty.
Мы проводили 2 дня назад эксперимент с научным центром. Офицеры ходили туда вместе со мной. Понятно? Значит, страшного, конечно, ничего там нет. Это ясно. Сегодня состоялось решение и правительственное.
A mask to protect against beta rays.
И отсекать бета. Потом еще
And a special apron.
фартук такой тяжелый. Так,
Double layers of protection on the hands.
одни, вторые прорезиненные.
The whole uniform weighed 26 to 30 kilos.
26-30 килограмм.
Хорошо, значит, первый вопрос решили. Так, медицинское свидетельство не все прошли? Все прошли. Нет, подождите, это ответ, значит, не по существу. Анализ крови, правильно? Значит, я себе, товарищи,